Hello and welcome back to the farm. Well, as you can see, the vibrant fall foliage has passed. Cold weather is here, and the wild winter weather of central New York is knocking on the door. But before fall exhales its last, I was blessed to have Steve, Michael, Megan, and even my neighbor Jerry come back to the farm and help take down a few more trees so that I could finish up what I wanted to finish up for the fall. Steve has been completely indispensable over the past year in helping to safely take down some of these trees around the farm in areas that were very sensitive, either by buildings or by the road. And Michael, he's always willing to help, and he likes coming to the farm, he likes being outside. So I'd just like to say thank you and let them know how appreciative I am of their continuing help getting this farm in some kind of better order than what it has been in over the last year. So as a brief recap of where we are, it's late fall and I have several trees that still need to come down around the property. There's trees by the road in front of the field that need to come down. There's trees in front of the building that is called the shop or the store that needs to come down. And here we are pulling down some trees along the back of that building. The trees back here grew in a cluster of about 4 trees that spread out like a tripod. So getting them cut safely without falling on a building was quite a challenge. Aside from those trees, there's a couple trees on the other side of that building that still need to come down, and there's trees in front of the barn that still need to come down. Because of how late it is in the season, we're going to have to be a little bit selective about what's coming down this season. But so far so good. With a little bit of help from Michael and Steve and some pulleys and some long ropes, trees have come down, as has my camera. The camera's fine. My neighbor Jerry popped over. He helped cut up some of the wood. He's going to use some of this for firewood, and I told him, with all the 15 trees that are strewn through the field, have at it, take whatever you want. After pulling down 2 or 3 trees manually, we decided to make a couple cuts, hook the tree up to a bulldozer with a rope, and let the bulldozer pull the tree over. That was great, because with the bulldozer fired up, I can just move that thing right around and push the tree into a big pile, get it out of the way, and make room for the next trees that are coming down. It worked really well. I also used this opportunity to push some of the logs and tree trunks that were strewn through the field back into this same pile. I think I'm going to have a gigantic pile of timber in the center of the field that I could cut up as time allows, during the winter, during the spring. If the fall lingers on like it is right now, hopefully that'll be the case, I could just come out and work on this pile of trees. At least they'll all be in one central area, and the goal is to have the entire remainder of the field clear, flat, and ready to go in the spring. Fortunately, we had some good leadership on the job today. Kira, the dog, came. She oversaw everything. She made sure everybody was safe and in line, and that everything went smoothly. Thanks to Steve's oversight of the tree cutting process, we were able to successfully take down some pretty tall trees that were right by the road. This one is a very tall black walnut tree. It's a beautiful tree, but I just don't want to deal with the nuts that these things drop all the time. What I'd like to have is just a row of maple trees across the front of the property. So this one was kind of in the way of several things. We got a rope up there, tied the rope to the bulldozer, pulled the bulldozer out, and then Steve started making his cuts. And as with all of the other trees so far, Steve made great cuts, and the tree fell exactly where it was supposed to, and we were on to the next tree. Let me also mention while you're watching this that this is early November. It's about 11 a.m. We woke up to probably a 30-degree day. It was pretty chilly. And then at this point in the day, it got to about 60 or 65 degrees. So beautiful weather to cut down trees. The next tree in line was a much smaller tree that was kind of hidden behind the front black walnut tree. This one is also a black walnut tree, very small, so it only took a couple cuts, a few pulls, and this one fell into the field as well. The process of using the bulldozer to pull these trees over has worked exceptionally well today, so we decided to use the exact same technique when pulling down the trees in the front of the building that we call the shop or the store. We hooked up some ropes high up in the trees. Steve made a couple cuts, and using the power of the bulldozer, we pulled the rope and the tree came right over. The second tree in front of this building was at sort of a crazy angle, and it had to fall in another crazy angle. Can't really tell great from this video, but we were worried that it was going to clip the side of the building. But fortunately, Steve accounted for this when he made his cuts, and then the bulldozer roared into life, pulled the tree, and the tree missed the building and fell right where it should. Everything turned out just fine for this tree as well. So with all the excitement of tree cutting day behind us, I had one glaring task that I wanted to finish this season in preparation for the ground being ready to plant next season. I wanted to try and grade and level the field as much as possible, the entire property actually, but the field was what remained. So with all of the trees and limbs and all the brush moved into a gigantic pile in the middle of the property, I just took many slow passes in reverse with the blade down, and I just scraped the ground flat. Now, in some areas of this field, there were big piles of dirt, there were big piles of brush, a lot of trees, some trunks, and those had to be dealt with a little bit differently, but for the most part, as you can see in this video, the field is largely flat and level. Now I know what you're saying, because I said it too. There's just stuff everywhere. There's branches, there's limbs, there's twigs, there's roots, all sorts of stuff throughout this field. This is in no way ready for planting next year. And that is an accurate statement, but like I've said in previous videos, I have a couple companies lined up to bring a forestry mulcher out to the farm and take a pass across this entire field. Hopefully that will mulch up any of the remaining wood and debris throughout the field, and between that and tilling the field, I will then be able to plant some grass and plant some crops. And we'll deal with that topic a little bit later in the season. Something that I've had to deal with throughout the summer working with this bulldozer is that with it being such a gigantic piece of equipment, it's able to move and kick up gigantic pieces of wood and trees and limbs, things that are way heavier than I am. And it's always a challenge to try and get these things unstuck from in between the moving parts of the bulldozer when they get stuck. There was a gigantic limb that got wedged behind the blade, and I wanted to make sure I got it out instead of it being kicked up and damaging something. It took a few kicks and a little bit of effort, but it did finally come out. Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with this any more than a couple times doing this entire field. The previous owner was right. Operating this big machine is a workout. Between operating the controls, getting up, jumping down, working with the timbers and the stuff that it moves around, it's exhausting. It does a beautiful job of leveling everything out though. Just have to be very gentle with the controls. Off to the left of this giant tree on the left side of the screen is the road that goes through the swamp to my cleared acreage on the side of my property. And what I wanted to do today while I was bulldozing was to move a lot of piles of dirt onto that road so that I could push those piles of dirt into that swampy area where I got the bulldozer stuck. So in the process of scraping the ground flat here, there were several piles of dirt that had to be smoothed out, and what I did instead is I just moved them onto that road. Once they were on the road, I simply pushed them down the path of the road between the couple trees, and I started dumping load after load after load of dirt into the entrance of that swampy area where the bulldozer got stuck. This bulldozer blade is 11 feet wide and it could push a lot of dirt. Eventually, I pushed 11 loads of dirt into this area, and I built up this area just over 2 feet. So as you notice, the left track of the bulldozer isn't moving at all. It's not sinking. There's no issue right now. Just to the left of this, it drops off about 2.5 feet, and it's all water and swamp. So I'm hoping that this process that I've gone through to move dirt over and over and over again into this area and then compacting it down and grading it and smoothing it out will have fixed the problem of this being a very swampy area. Now, people have left comments and suggestions that I need to put some road surface material in here, whether it's like a corduroy road surface and then you put stone on top of that, or whether I just dump stone in there. I'm going to need to do something, and this is a larger issue that involves the DEC because this is swampland. Now, I've gone through the process of dealing with that issue. I'm going to make a video on the DEC process in a few months when the process is fully complete, but this area right here has always been an access road, and I have been granted fair use to use it as an access road, which does include putting down gravel and stone and road surface to make this a more stable area. Between my efforts to clear the road, to level the field, to push load after load after load of dirt into the entry of that road area by the swamp, I think things are in very good shape for the end of the season. I wanted to show all of you what this road looks like when it's built up a few feet. It's way different from the last video where the bulldozer was stuck 4.5 feet down into the mud. You can clearly see the mud over there on the left hand side and the water, but on this area where the dirt was moved, it's much higher and it's stable, compacted, and dry. So what's next? Well, as we look around the property, there's stuff everywhere. We've already talked about this. There's branches, there's roots, there's trees, there's limbs, and this is all going to have to get mulched up because this, as a field, is a problem. This is a mess. My hope is that once the forestry mulchers come through here, it's just all smooth soil. Also, in the center of the property, I have this gigantic pile of brush and trees. Now, a lot of these are very large trees, which I need to cut up. Some of it is brush. Some of it is dirt that's been pushed up against it from the bulldozer. There's even some stumps in here. I want to come through here and cut all of this up. Some of it may be firewood. We'll see. But across the remainder of the field behind the buildings, everything is similarly flat and smoothed out, with the exception of a few piles of brush here and there. For example, this pile of twigs came from a tree that was cut down, and it was easier just to leave it here to hopefully be mulched up than it was to try and scrape it across to the center of the field. But as we look across what has been done, this building right here called the store or the shop, the trees are gone and it's ready for the next phase. The barn, the trees still need to come down. The side of the barn, this used to be a 4-foot cliff. I graded it smooth, and yeah, there's still some shrubbery and stuff that needs to be cut down, but it's manageable. As we move back from this area, the ground is equally flat, and as we move around behind the buildings, you can see that this has been flattened and graded as well. Now there's a ton of rocks here, so I'm gonna have to lay down some paper and then put down some more stone back here, but it's all a project that's manageable and doable. The garage is going to be my next job to tackle, hopefully in the spring. I want to build this back up into something usable. There's trees on the other side of the shop that still need to be cut down, and that will have to wait until springtime. But everything else has been cut down behind it that needs to be cut down. One remaining task, though, is to sell the bulldozer. If you're interested in a high-quality, large bulldozer, send me an email to the address on the screen. You've seen this bulldozer in numerous videos and can probably attest to how nice it is and how great it works. I'd like to get this out before winter. I'm very pleased at the progress that was made this first year of owning this farm. Look at this field. It's so nice and flat. But just because this is done doesn't mean we're done for the season. There's plenty more tasks to go and a lot more to come. But that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.